Hello and welcome to our latest breaking news. Here are the detailed headlines. Please stay tuned. The decisive knot determining the fate of the US-Iran conflict is gradually revealing itself. Speaking to the press, Mr. Trump expressed confidence that an agreement to end the conflict with Iran could be reached soon. He said the next meeting between the two sides could take place this weekend, while leaving open the possibility of extending the ceasefire for another 2 weeks, though he assessed that Tehran will likely push for a deal, making this unnecessary. As the 2-week ceasefire between the US and Iran nears its end, the key question is whether the two countries can reach an agreement to end a war that has claimed thousands of lives and caused a global energy crisis. The obstacles to a complete resolution of the US-Iran conflict include the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's nuclear program, and the fighting in Lebanon. If these issues are successfully resolved, the war will come to an end. After the conflict began, Iran blocked the Strait of Hormuz, a maritime artery transporting about 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas, causing energy prices to soar. Iran continues to export crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz and allows only some other vessels to transit. This measure was implemented to restrict Iran's oil exports and exert economic pressure on the Tehran government to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. strategy could backfire because Washington's blockade order risks further reducing the number of ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has also threatened retaliation by disrupting shipping in the Red Sea, a vital alternative route to the Strait of Hormuz for Saudi Arabia to continue exporting oil. Iran cannot easily give up control of the Strait of Hormuz, and more broadly the global economy, without significant concessions from the U.S. Iran has experienced long periods of low oil exports, including during the first term of U.S. President Donald Trump when he pursued a strategy of maximum pressure through harsh sanctions. President Donald Trump stated that negotiations in Pakistan failed to reach an agreement because Iran refused to abandon its nuclear program. The U.S. is pushing for the elimination of Iran's nuclear capabilities, except for the civilian nuclear power plant in Bushehr, to prevent the country from building a nuclear bomb. The Trump administration wants Iran to halt all uranium enrichment activities and hand over its stockpile of highly enriched uranium to the U.S. The New York Times reported that the U.S. proposed suspending all of Iran's nuclear activities for 20 years during talks in Pakistan, while Iran only wants a maximum of 5 years. Iran has long denied any intention to develop nuclear weapons, asserting its right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. The last time the UN nuclear watchdog was able to verify Iran's uranium stockpile was before the US and Israeli attacks in June 2025. Inspectors determined that Iran had stockpiled 441 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%. If further processed, this would be enough material to build approximately 12 nuclear bombs. The current location and status of this stockpile remain unclear. Israel and the U.S. have agreed to pause attacks on Iran for 2 weeks, but disagreements remain over whether the ceasefire agreement includes Lebanon, where Israel is conducting attacks against Hezbollah forces backed by Iran. The prolonged conflict in Lebanon risks undermining any U.S. effort to de-escalate tensions with Iran. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian declared that Tehran will never abandon its Lebanese brothers. 4 pitfalls of the Hormuz blockade plan warn that the U.S. could face a painful failure. The U.S. is implementing a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz to pressure Iran. However, experts warn this move is difficult to sustain long-term and could lead to major economic consequences and a risk of wider conflict. Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Saban, a researcher at the Andreas Center for Political and Strategic Studies in Saudi Arabia, believes the U.S. can most likely only enhance naval presence, surveillance, and ship inspections, or impose selective restrictions, rather than fully controlling the waterway. According to him, the complexity of the sea lanes and the intertwining of international interests make the enforcement of an absolute blockade nearly unfeasible. According to Past Today, analysts have given 4 main reasons why Mr. Trump's blockade plan might fail painfully. First, global energy crisis and domestic pressure. Shortly after the U.S. announced control of the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices exceeded $100 per barrel. This move is believed to worsen the global energy crisis, not only failing to curb oil prices but also pushing geopolitical risks higher. A sharp rise in fuel prices could also create significant public pressure within the U.S., forcing the administration to face negative backlash from citizens and businesses. Second, strong opposition from the international community. The plan to blockade Iran and the Strait of Hormuz has faced swift reactions from many countries and international organizations. European leaders expressed concern, while UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer emphasized that London would not be dragged into a war with Iran despite pressure. China called for ensuring freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, and Russia criticized the U.S. plan as damaging to global markets. Many other countries, including Turkey, also voiced opposition. Third, Iran has multiple alternative routes to maintain trade. Although ports are the backbone of Iran's economy, accounting for over 90% of its foreign trade, the country possesses a coastline of over 5,800 kilometers, creating many alternatives. Iran has about 30 ports of various sizes, bordering not only the Persian Gulf but also extending to the Sea of Oman, the Arabian Sea, and the Caspian Sea. Additionally, the country shares land borders with many nations like Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, sufficient to maintain supplies of goods and fuel. Fourth, the risk of a military response from Iran. The most critical factor is that Iran is unlikely to stand idly by in the face of a large-scale blockade plan. Hardline statements from the Iranian army and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps indicate the country is ready to retaliate. Warnings about the potential to attack U.S. targets if blockaded show that the risk of military escalation is very high, potentially pushing the regional situation beyond control. Considering the above factors, observers assess that the U.S. plan to blockade the Strait of Hormuz not only faces geopolitical and economic obstacles but also carries a risk of backfiring, potentially pushing the region into a more dangerous spiral of conflict. U.S. soldiers on an aircraft carrier face food shortages. Mr. Trump speaks of a small detour. Mr. Dan was very worried when his daughter, a female Marine on the USS Tripoli, sent him a photo of a meal served on the ship. 2/3 of the tray was empty, containing only a small spoonful of shredded meat and a tortilla. The ship is currently deployed in the military campaign against Iran. The servicewoman confided to her father that crew members are rationing food, and fresh fruit is extremely scarce. When Mr. Dan's daughter said supplies on the ship were running low, the family sent her a box of food and personal items. The boxes were sent nearly a month ago, but none have arrived. Mr. Dan, 63, a former Marine himself, said, "We have the strongest military in the world. We shouldn't be running out of food, and we shouldn't have this situation where packages can't be received on the ship." A mother in Texas whose son is a sailor also serving on the USS Tripoli said she panicked after hearing her son was hungry. Her family has spent at least $2,000 on supply boxes, but none have reached her son. According to USA Today, shipping packages to military post offices across the Middle East has been indefinitely suspended due to airspace closures and other logistical impacts. Meanwhile, according to Bloomberg, U.S. President Donald Trump recently gave a speech praising the U.S. economic performance since he returned to the White House. He acknowledged that the Iran conflict is a small detour in his agenda. Mr. Trump said, "We had one of the best economies in American history in the first term. Now the economy is even more booming, despite a small detour related to Iran. However, military action is necessary because if we didn't do it, worse things could certainly happen." In his statement, President Trump also pushed back against opinions that the Iran conflict has lasted too long, asserting that things will end soon. Mr. Trump said, "The Iran conflict has only been going on for 2 months. In the past, we got bogged down in wars that lasted 4 years, even 18 years. Things in the Middle East are very favorable, we will win soon." America's new stealth bomber spreads its wings for the first time. The U.S. Air Force confirmed that the B-21 Raider stealth bomber successfully completed an in-flight refueling test with a KC-135 Stratotanker. The test was conducted at Edwards Air Force Base, a premier U.S. aviation test center. The program involved coordination between the U.S. Air Force, dedicated test units, and Northrop Grumman, the B-21's primary manufacturer. However, the number of aircraft involved in the test and the timeline for achieving initial operational capability have not been disclosed. The Telegraph reported that the B-21 Raider bomber, worth nearly $700 million, is capable of carrying nuclear weapons and delivering strikes anywhere in the world. Released images show the B-21 Raider flying over a mountainous area at an undisclosed location, followed by the KC-135 Stratotanker. The B-21 Raider is still in testing and is expected to be officially commissioned next year. Once operational, it will become the world's most advanced stealth bomber, gradually replacing the B-2 Spirit, which has served the U.S. military for nearly 30 years. The most notable aspect of this test was the coordinated in-flight refueling exercise. This is considered a particularly critical capability in high-intensity conflict scenarios, as it significantly extends the operational range of combat aircraft and allows them to maintain presence at great distances. The U.S. Air Force stated that during this test, the B-21 Raider did not perform actual refueling. Instead, the bomber only flew in close formation with the tanker in what was described as a proximity flight. During in-flight refueling, the tanker flies ahead and extends a refueling boom from the rear. The receiving aircraft then moves in to connect with this system while both fly at speeds up to hundreds of kilometers per hour. This move shows that the U.S. is gradually perfecting the long-range combat capability for its new generation B-21 Raider bomber. This is also a key factor if Washington wants to maintain intercontinental strike capability in any situation. The B-21 Raider, manufactured by Northrop Grumman, is described by the U.S. military as the most fuel-efficient bomber ever built, far surpassing the B-2 Spirit. Air Force Chief of Staff General Ken Wilsbach emphasized that this long-range stealth bomber will reduce the burden on the tanker fleet and free up more resources to support coalition forces. That gives us more operational choices and increases the deterrent power America needs, he said. Meanwhile, General Stephen L. Davis, commander of Air Force Global Strike Command, affirmed that this capability ensures we can deliver long-range penetrating strikes anywhere in the world at any time. 40 countries to meet soon to discuss reopening the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, confirmed it has deployed over 12 warships to international waters in the Gulf of Oman to enforce a comprehensive blockade on all vessels entering or leaving Iranian ports. According to Dr. Jennifer Parker, an expert at the University of Western Australia's Defence and Security Institute, the U.S. military is maintaining a strict long-range surveillance network using radar systems, patrol aircraft, and UAVs to monitor all activity in the area. Meanwhile, many countries are pushing efforts to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East and reopen the strait. The British Prime Minister and French President will chair a meeting with leaders from approximately 40 countries to achieve this goal. Leaders from 40 countries and the International Maritime Organization, IMO, are expected to meet online to discuss supporting the ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. and developing a plan to ensure the Strait of Hormuz reopens for shipping after the Middle East hostilities end. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is expected to travel to Paris to co-chair the conference with French President Emmanuel Macron. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will also attend, according to a German government official. The UK Prime Minister's office recently stated that leaders will establish an international mission to reopen this sea lane, affirming it will be a purely defensive mission, and countries will deploy coordinated military forces as soon as conditions permit. The conference will also discuss supporting the IMO's work to ensure the safety of ships and crews. CNN cited a draft of Mr. Starmer's speech at the conference, saying reopening the Strait of Hormuz unconditionally and immediately is a global responsibility. We need to act to restore the free flow of energy and commerce. The British leader will also address the need to reassure commercial ships and support mine-sweeping operations to restore global stability and security. A German official said Germany is ready to contribute to ensuring safe passage through the strait, provided there is a clear legal basis. This contribution could include deploying minesweepers or naval surveillance operations, areas where the German military has extensive experience. Iran firmly refuses despite Trump's willingness to compromise with a series of concessions to end the war. U.S. President Donald Trump expressed confidence that an agreement to end the war with Iran could be reached soon. Mr. Trump said the next meeting between the U.S. and Iran could take place this weekend, and extending the two-week ceasefire is possible but might not be necessary because Tehran wants a deal. Meanwhile, Politico, citing a senior official in the Gulf region, reported that President Trump might offer new concessions to Iran in an effort to end the conflict. Specifically, according to the Times of India, a senior Gulf official believes Iran is refusing to make the necessary concessions, preventing President Donald Trump from finding an honorable exit to end the current conflict. The senior Gulf official assessed that Mr. Trump is genuinely serious about pushing negotiations and is very eager to reach an agreement to end the war. Accordingly, the U.S. president is fully capable of accepting further concessions. However, Iran so far has refused to make the concessions Washington needs for the U.S. president to save face when withdrawing from the conflict. According to the Gulf official, Tehran's hardline stance is causing peace talks to stall, despite the White House showing a willingness to negotiate. This reflects profound differences between the two sides, especially on key issues like the nuclear program and conditions for ending the conflict. The current context shows that the U.S. is under increasing pressure to end the war, while Iran appears to maintain its stance to maximize its advantage at the negotiating table. This deadlock shows that despite U.S. claims of holding the cards, Iran still holds significant leverage. Tehran can withstand blockade and airstrikes while pressuring the global market by restricting traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important energy waterway. Earlier, Finnish President Alexander Stubb also admitted that Iran holds many advantages at this time. U.S. and Iran resume indirect talks, effort to extend ceasefire. According to The Guardian, the U.S. and Iran are conducting indirect negotiations to extend the two-week ceasefire agreement, which is set to expire on April 22. According to the White House, although there is no formal request to extend the truce, Washington is participating very actively in the negotiation process. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the next round of talks will likely take place in Islamabad, while expressing cautious optimism about the prospects of reaching an agreement. Just days after previous peace efforts stalled, she emphasized that nothing is official until confirmed by the White House. This development coincides with a new wave of shuttle diplomacy initiated by Pakistan to seek international support for an agreement to end the conflict. This information comes as Pakistani officials travel to Iran and other regional countries to garner diplomatic support for a peace deal. General Asim Munir led a Pakistani delegation to Tehran recently to convey a message from Washington, while also trying to arrange a second round of ceasefire talks between the U.S. and Iran. This high-level delegation also included Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi. On the same day, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif began a two-day visit to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey to bolster peace efforts by coordinating support from other regional powers. Reports from the region indicate that both the U.S. and Iran support extending the ceasefire agreement, although President Donald Trump suggested that an extension might even be unnecessary to secure a peace deal. U.S. lawmakers pushed to impeach U.S. Secretary of War over Iran conflict. A group of Democratic lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives filed 6 articles of impeachment against Mr. Pete Hegseth, accusing him of abuse of power, violating the laws of war, and undermining Congress's oversight role regarding the military campaign in Iran. The impeachment resolution was led by Representative Jasmine Ansari, the first Iranian-American elected to Congress, and co-sponsored by 8 other Democrats. According to the published content, the 6 articles target a series of actions alleged to be serious violations of the Defense Secretary's constitutional duties. However, the impeachment resolution proposed by Democratic Representative Jasmine Ansari has very little chance of passing due to the Republican majority in the House. Representative Ansari wrote on the social media platform X, "I filed articles of impeachment against Pete Hegseth for violating his oath, endangering U.S. service members, and violating the laws of war, including attacks on civilians and a girls' school in Min, Iran." She added, "Only Congress can declare war. Hegseth must be removed immediately." The war in the Middle East has caused oil prices to spike and reduced President Donald Trump's approval ratings ahead of the crucial November midterm elections. However, Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson told that this is just a Democrat trying to get attention, as the War Department has decisively and overwhelmingly achieved the president's objectives in Iran.